Smile.
Hi.
I know. I thought I'd tell everybody at this point, there is no way to know when this actually connects over live. So I just sit here and say,
Hi.
sorry if you're catching me in the middle of it. And we're live, and there it is. And I'm going to pull everybody up on Facebook so I can follow along with you. And we're going to record this. So I've got a little bit of technology things I got to do. Let's let people in the room who are
Okay.
here. And I have to tell you, so Janet Ing is going to be on here, and it's 3 a.m. her time.
Oh my goodness.
So, right, I know. Let me record this. So hold on one second. And hello, everyone. Cheryl Hickerson's EO Females in Finance. And today I am so excited to have my friend Dina Mabry with BGA Insurance here. How are you, Dina?
Great, great, great. Waiting
Are
for the
you?
weather to come into California.
It's
It's going to be
snowing.
nasty.
It's literally
Oh,
snowing here.
that's
We don't get
fun.
much. So people know, just because we're in Missouri, just don't think that we like snow or know what snow is or we see it. When we get it, we are of the freak out, like
Oh,
better go get our, eggs and milk and bread and
right.
stuff,
Hunker
our,
in.
our cake ingredients. But nevertheless, so I'm gonna go ahead, Dina, and make you a host right now.
Awesome.
And you will be able to share your screen from here, and you're on, and tell people about yourself as you're getting everything brought up.
Okay, so I'm Dina Mabry and I'm with BGA Insurance, and BGA stands for Brokerage General Agency. And what that basically means is that we place life insurance and long-term care insurance and disability insurance with all the carriers. We're an independent brokerage. So we work with financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, pretty much anybody who needs to just shop the market for the best price and the best product. So I am, yes, friends with Cheryl, and I'm so honored to be here today and talk about beneficiaries. And I can't help but think in this pandemic, we've lost over 400,000 people, loved ones that everyone knows and loves, and no one expected this to happen. But you wonder, one, did they have life insurance, and how is their family faring, especially economically, without them? And then number two, did they have everything in order? Did they have their ducks in place, ducks in order to make sure that all their beneficiaries were set? I usually do this talk around Valentine's Day. And why I do it at Valentine's Day is because I say, make sure that all of your assets and all of your accounts are set up for your loved ones that you love, not people that you used to love and maybe you don't love them any longer. So we think about Valentine's Day of the day of love. But I think it's a good thing to talk about too, beginning of the year, and talk about possibly just getting stuff together, making lists and making sure that you have passwords to accounts and making sure that beneficiaries are checked. So I'm going to tell you a quick story that I pride myself on being very type A and making sure everything is in order. And I got my husband to come join me at my computer. And I said, all right, let's log into your accounts, because he works for a big tech company. And sure enough, the first one we went to, it logged up and it had a big asterisk on it, alert, alert, there's no beneficiary on this account. And I thought, well, there you go. I don't even have a beneficiary on my husband's accounts. So that was my first alert. So I'm going to just go through a few things and we'll talk about these different places to look for beneficiaries. Okay, where is it? This is always my challenge.
That's okay. And then
Let
I'll
me
tell you when it
see.
shows on Facebook. I can see it on my screen here. Good. And I want to make certain it pops up on Facebook, because sometimes I feel like if I don't actually see it, there it is. You're good.
Okay, so these are the top 10 places. And of course, number one I had to bring in was life insurance, because that's what I do for a living. So when we do life insurance policies, oftentimes we're a husband and a wife, and they'll put each other as beneficiaries on a life policy. But then the contingent beneficiary is always the head scratcher, where they'll say, well, should I put my 2-year-old? Should I put my 5-year-old? Should I put all my kids? And the best thing to do, instead of putting young minor children on as beneficiaries, is to make sure that you have a trust or a will, because then that will set up when the money comes into the trust. Then that way it pushes the money out to the children through a grantor or a trustee, a trusted person to manage the estate. So I do recommend husband and wife on a life insurance policy as the primary beneficiary if you have a spouse. Otherwise, you can put your trust as beneficiary. So I'm thinking about life insurance policies, and I'm also thinking about the fact that Most people don't review their life insurance policies. I know it's crazy, but we put it in the safe and we think, okay, we have that. But what you really need to do is make sure that your life insurance is up to date, make sure that you know how long it will last, if it's a term policy or if it's a permanent policy with cash in it or accumulation, know what's going on with those policies. Last week, I was talking with a gentleman who thought he had life insurance until 2071. And I thought, well, that's odd. What does that mean? He really had a 20-year term policy and his premium was going to be very low and set until the 20th year. But then after that, it was going to grow. It was going to triple, quadruple, just go through the roof, that he would never be able to afford that premium. But in his mind, he thought he had it longer than he did. So checking your policies, checking your beneficiaries, and making sure that your beneficiaries are still people you want to be your beneficiaries.
Hey, Dina, can I tell a quick
Yes.
story about life insurance benefits?
Jump in.
Okay. So when you have policies, and you can tell me how true or not this might be, you work at the brokerage agencies with the insurance carriers. So let's say you have 3 children and they're grown, they're adults, and you want to leave them a third and a third and a third. Well, guess what? We know that that's not actually possible mathematically, everybody, right?
Right.
I want to tell you a quick story. I was a life insurance underwriter for a lot of years with Pacific Life, and I had a policy came in, very large policy. And at the time, Pac Life didn't have where you could go into percentage, like to actually go in a little bit deeper into fractional percentages, right? It was, so you had to think 33, 33 and what? 34.
34.
And you know what? At first you might think, well, that's not such a big deal until that policy is $10 million and you're going to tell one of the beneficiaries that they're going to get 34% and the other two are going to get 33. All of a sudden everybody starts going, well, hold on a second. I think why did my sister, why did my brother get, or why did and so when you're working with individuals, Dina, I think that that's one of the things that you bring, that knowledge point to them, that, hey, by the way, I see what you're trying to do here. However,
Doesn't
because
work
I
that
think
way.
that is one of the things that people have a tendency to do, is they think, until the amount is so significant. And I will tell every single person on this call, if you think that those grown children of yours are not going to be pissy and upset, I can assure you, as somebody who
They
worked at the
will be.
insurance carrier once, they become terrible children. They
Yes.
call us and say terrible things. So
Yes.
what do you do to help navigate those percentages in that instance, if you don't mind my asking?
No, that's a great question, because that does happen. 3 kids is very common and you do have to pick somebody. So we talk about maybe the oldest child, or we talk about somehow maybe the trust. So if it is, let's say that you do have a spouse and your spouse is your primary beneficiary, you can put a trust as your contingent beneficiary. So then that way the trust can equalize it, because the trust knows you can set up things like, I don't want them to have money until they're 30, or I want a portion to go out when they're 25. The trust is really, and I know that's the last thing on my slide, but the trust really is crucial because it does distinguish exactly what's going to happen. If we did put them right on, like Cheryl's saying, you list Mary, James, and Joe on there, you do have to pick somebody to get 34. Absolutely. And you know what? One thing, while we're talking about the trusts on a life insurance policy, it's important, excuse me, it's important to put the spouse as the primary, not the trust, because if the money were to go to a trust first, if there's any debts or anything going on with the estate, that has to be solved first before the money can be paid out. Versus if it's a spouse, it goes right away. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Perfect. Yes, and I'm going to have my contact information after this slide too. So reach out if we can have this discussion as well. And then I also have all the carrier beneficiary change forms, ownership change forms, and I'm happy to help anybody who needs my help getting beneficiaries under control with life policies. So let's move on to hybrid life and long-term care policies. I love this product because you can have a large bucket of long-term care money, but if you happen to not use your long-term care and just die peacefully in your sleep when you're 100 years old, there is a return of premium life insurance component on those products. So you need a beneficiary there as well. Employer pension plans, those are huge, and that can create some issues in families because a spouse will have their own login, let's say at Fidelity or E-Trade or anywhere else, and then you're working your job and you have your own login, and who's checking all these beneficiaries and who's checking the passwords. So in addition to checking beneficiaries, let's make sure that you get the passwords for each of these accounts and make sure they're in a safe place, because that's really devastating if you can't get in and you don't know what you have. You have any comments on that, Cheryl, on stock options or?
Yeah, actually, one of the things too, I want to make certain that we touch on, I'm sure you will, is the age is very important for a beneficiary. One of the things that I ran into as a life insurance underwriter for those years was that people would submit policies and I realize, friends, that a lot of times our clients think that we want the best for our families out of these policies, because they truly, most of them on here that Dina has displayed are usually benefiting somebody else other than our own life. A few of them there, the disability and long-term care may apply to us, but as Dina pointed out, if you outlive that, and I used to love the ones, Dina, I don't know about you, that come to you and say, well, what if I never need it? Well, hallelujah for you. You know, I'm so happy. You're going to get mad that you bought a policy to protect you and outdid, you did something that was unbelievable. I think that's incredible, but I think that the age of the beneficiary needs to be discussed as well, because I had a lot of times where we would get, if you open up your beneficiary, your client's beneficiaries, and see a child on there, high alert. At least I know that, and it goes by state, I believe, but the state minimum age of quote unquote adult is very different per state and by account even, I think, maybe. But for example, in the life insurance policy, when I lived in California, that child had to be 18, I think, at the time, in 1998. Had to I'm old, I've been doing this a long time. They had to be 18 in order to collect the funds. Otherwise, we were required as a carrier to put it in an abeyance account, where guess what? It collected what? No interest,
Nothing.
nothing. So I mean, I don't know, what do you do? How are you handling that as a BGA, and when you get those policies in and taking a look at it?
Well, it's interesting. So we do the spouse as the primary, and then if people don't have a trust or a will, then they do put their kids on there, and it's a problem, because you have to let them, right? And I always stop and say, you need to get a trust. And you know what everybody says? I can't afford a trust. And so I have referrals for that too, because there's very affordable ways that you can get a
Oh,
trust.
and we have that within Females in Finance too,
Yes,
right?
we do. Yes,
Yeah.
we do. So Cheryl and I can be a resource to that. So that's no excuse. But absolutely, yes, spouse first. And even if it's not a spouse, maybe it's a sibling or a brother, brother, sister, sibling. I did work with a lady who wanted to put her mother, and her mother was 90 years old. And I thought, I don't think that's a good idea. Her mother's probably not going to be here.
Yeah. And I do think that it's interesting, going back to the child part of this too. Um, I think that this is really important to remember, that a lot of times people will say to you, like in a divorce situation, oh, I'm going to buy the policy so it benefits the child. If nothing else, and you can't do the trust, and Dina can help you with getting that trust in place. If you don't have access to it, she does, but you can at the very least use an UTMA or UGMA situation.
Right.
So something is set up, so there is for the benefit of that child, because I was a rarity. People used to call me the agent advocate and underwriting. I very rarely ever let a policy go by my desk to the end without that child being dealt with, because I knew, what are we going to do? Take these policies, and where are they going to go? In a
Right.
box someplace.
Yes.
And we were very dependent as an insurance carrier on all of you as financial advisors and client support specialists and stuff, to go back and review them. And let's be honest, we're human, things happen, people forget they have policies. I mean, we all know that to be true from the
Yes.
amount of money that's been sitting out there in carriers and stuff. So that this is a really important one with the kids.
It is. It is. And it's a scavenger hunt, but you want to have the scavenger hunt now and review everything now. So we talked about employer pension plans, and we were on stock options and RSUs, deferred comp, all of that. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can use a transfer on death, and then you can also use, the joint tenants with right of survivorship as well. Each state is so different. So I urge you to get your financial advisor, get an estate attorney, and just look at the documents. Make sure that they're set up properly. I want to tell a story about property. So my husband's parents live in Georgia, and they bought property in California. And it was one of those things where my husband's father bought it, and it was a family investing with his family, and my husband's mother was not happy about it. So the wife wasn't happy. So he went and bought the property with just his name on it. Well, then he got ill and no one remembered the property. They had everything buttoned up with their trust. Everything was great. Jeff has one brother. And then lo and behold, the property reared its ugly head. And it was a pain between going to that town, which was about 3 hours away from us, getting an attorney in that town. It cost us about $5,000 to hire the attorney, get the death certificate, get everything settled, and then get it put into his mom's name, because Georgia's not, from my understanding is Georgia is not community property, but California is, but he was
Correct.
a Georgia resident.
Yep.
So you got all that moving around too.
Yeah, the property thing too, something we went through. So Daryl has an uncle who passed away about 3 years ago. And people think that with property, that all property can go into a trust or a will, and then that's going to disseminate to where it's supposed to go. In the state of Missouri, and this may be individual to every state, that's true with the exception of vehicles. So vehicles, the Department of Transportation, so the DOT in Missouri says, we don't care if you have a will. We don't care if you have a trust. We don't even care if you went to, it's going to have to go to probate unless you come into the Department of Transportation, the DOT, and you actually fill out upon death. You're going to have an actual legacy account built into the car. And that is the only thing that will supersede probate in the state of Missouri, is that actual car certificate has to be told where will the car go upon death. So when Uncle Lonnie passed away and he has this car, we had to wait a year and 3 months before probate was finished. Daryl could take ownership of the car. We had to go pay and go. You still got to pay those taxes, friends. The taxes. So you had to go back, pay all the back taxes, and then get the car re-registered. It was a pain. And all he had to do was take out his, the tag for the car, take it down to the Department of Transportation, file a legacy account owner. So know your state and what is allowed with cars when Dina has property on here. Because it is dependent. It is all state mandated, because that's not a federal mandated way of handling property with beneficiaries. Right. Stories are great. It's like learn from all our mistakes.
Live and learn. Well, don't we always say, Cheryl, it's not what you know, it's what you don't know. That's what's dangerous.
Not the truth.
And in California, the property with automobiles too is you can put both names, both spouses on the car. So you can say,
yeah, and you can do that in Missouri. And we just were in shock when we found out, because Daryl just naturally thought, oh, okay. Well, and even we never thought probate would take 15 months. We really didn't think it would be 15 months. We were thinking more like 8 to 9. And as it lagged on, and then we got that little surprise tax bill at the end. And so always fun, friend, always fun. So just know your state, and especially when it has to do with the property, what the laws are.
Right. So the next, of course, is 401ks, 403bs, 457s, which is the government plan. But also, I have a simple K with my business and in different retirement plans. I know other people have solo Ks and SEP IRAs. I mean, it's never ending. And I think we set these things up and then we forget about them. So same type of deal. Make sure that you check your beneficiaries. Make sure that they're up to date. The brokerage checking and savings account. Now, my understanding is you can do a transfer on death, a TOD, and that's a little bit easier because it's not a true beneficiary. It's just a TOD.
Yeah.
Annuities, a lot of the newer annuities have death benefits associated with them. Some annuities even have long-term care associated with them. So it's important to make sure that they're owned properly and the beneficiaries are up to date on annuities. And that's something too, you buy them and you forget about them, but you need to be addressed. I know we can talk more deeply too. And Cheryl, I don't know if you have a story from your divorce, but people get divorced and we forget about changing beneficiaries on a lot of these things too.
Yeah, actually, what I was going to say, going back to the 401k thing for a
Mm,
second.
go
So I
ahead.
was literally just sharing this morning with Uni Yost of Go Ask Jay she's in the Dallas area. And one of the things about 401k, there was an article last year, the year before last, and I keep going back to it because it's telling the bigger story here, which is people get so excited to get a new job and then they go to the new job and then they forget that that 401k is still sitting there. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that more than 70%, so this isn't like 7%, more than 70% of the 401ks where people try to roll them themselves fail. And then they forget and the money sits and it sits and it sits and it sits. So, highly recommend that one, if you don't know where if so and be forgiving with clients. We're not our parents anymore. We work at the same company for,
Right.
60 years and walk out with a fancy watch and a retirement party. Those days are gone. A lot of times, and if you've got clients who are very well paid freelancers and they work multiple jobs, they're maybe go through different jobs, et cetera, because they're a consultant and they're moving from place to place. Be very mindful to maybe order a social security statement or have them go online and download that and then go back to each of the companies to look for those 401ks, because that is where that beneficiary is, what that Dina's talking about right now, is super critical to look for it and get everything rolled over. I am the first person to say that I forgot about a job that I had. And I usually work decent amount of times in place. And one day Daryl was like, well, what's this? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I looked down and $54,000. I was like, well, who knew that? Oh, take that. And we got to roll it. So, I mean, it happens to the best of us. And as far as the divorce element, the transitional type of change. So I'm going to tell you one thing I remembered before I was divorced and I was an underwriter, I used to kind of chuckle to myself about what an emotional purchase life insurance is during the time of divorce. Like, I don't want to buy insurance for him. I'm not getting insurance for, I mean, and so the sooner you can get those things through and done and in place, the better, because the buyer's remorse is high during that time. They don't want to do it. But when you do actually go through the transition of divorce to being a single person, and these beneficiary designations become super critical, because I can tell you the last person on earth that I want to have any of my money is my ex-husband. Did I just say that out loud? Sorry if
You
that's a little
did.
bit, but that's the last human. And that feeling, by the way, tends to be pretty common for those, when we're going through. So what I did at the time, and being in financial services really helped. And I kept remember thinking, gosh, I'm such a good advocate for myself in this space. And I don't think most people have a Dina, or they have a Kathy, or they have a Janet, or they have Rachel. They don't have all these people to sit there and say, this is what you need to do. A checklist like what Dina has here is just saying, hey, these are the high points. If you see something on here that goes, I think I have something like that, let's go back and take a look at it. Because, yeah, there were brokerage accounts for sure that got missed. 100% Dina got missed in my divorce.
Yeah.
That was like, whoop, got to fix that. Life insurance policy on my daughter. It was a life insurance
Ooh.
policy we got with Northwestern Mutual for my daughter, long since forgot. And then one day, Daryl, when we were going through things, because he tends to be the keeper of the papers of stuff, and he's like, "Hey, you've got this life," and I said, "Yeah." And all of a sudden, it just clicked, like it snapped, and I said, oh, go get the policy." And sure enough, there was the beneficiary. I'm like, "We're gonna take that off," you know.
Yeah.
So I think that it happens to everyone, even so. Taking care of the cobbler's kids, so our own homes with Dina's
Mhm.
list, and then applying them to our clients. And then when our clients have stories like this, write those stories down and tell them to others. the stories are very real. The things that Dina's sharing with you, I'm sharing with you, people are commenting on Facebook with, they're very, very real. And it happens to everybody and there's no shame. I don't know, Dina. That's,
No shame. No shame.
yeah,
You
you just
know,
got to get it changed. And it's not like somebody's a dummy.
no, we just need to make the time. That's really the thing. And
Yeah.
like I said, both I've had things on this list that have happened to me. You know, one thing I want to point out on the life insurance policies too, when we talk about divorce, it's very interesting to know that the owner of the life insurance policy is the only one that can make changes to the beneficiary. So
Yeah.
you've got three aspects. You've got the insured, the owner, and the beneficiary. And most of the time, the owner is the insured. So if it's my life, I'm my owner and I'm my insured, and then I'll make my spouse the beneficiary. But in a divorce situation, you don't want to keep that owner, possibly, let's say it's a husband and wife. You don't, if the husband is having to get life insurance and keep it for the child or for the children, you want to make sure that you, and I say you as the spouse or the mother, would take on that ownership of the policy so that you control the beneficiaries.
Yeah.
Because if not, the owner can make beneficiary. You could change the beneficiary to the neighbor if you wanted to, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't, and you're not alerted. I think that's the problem in this industry too, is you're not alerted to the beneficiary change.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I was going to say too, to your point about that life insurance, the other place that I saw this happen is
Mhm.
like where you have a situation where you have a husband and wife also own a business together, and
Yes.
they go and they do the privileges as far as, let's say, the buyouts or the things, they change that. So superficially, legally, everything looks good. But if you had a buy sell agreement like in place or whatever, and you had a policy underneath that even,
Mhm.
and that beneficiary designation there said that it had the old owner situation, which might have been the husband and wife. It goes deep. I mean, you can get very granular in this, but you're seeing where as these conversations are coming up, well, gosh, I wouldn't have even thought about that. And we got a lot of those too, because people would call in and be like, and we had one when I worked at Pac Life, somebody, two owners, the husband and wife got divorced, but the husband kept the policy. And when he died, the new owner, which was the new wife, was on, and I was like, oh, we're writing that check to the old,
Oh,
that,
that is
that'll,
not a good day.
that was not a good day. Those are the days when advisors call in and say, yeah, I'm not liking my life right now. So don't
No,
be that. Don't become that
no,
person. Be very mindful of all of these little
yes.
pieces, because those policies, I mean, I'm going to be like, sorry. And we're going to stroke that check to the ex-wife, and
Right,
the new
right.
wife is over there going, what? You know, didn't get
Where's my
changed.
money?
Yep. You've gotten those calls.
Oh yeah, absolutely I have. And
Yeah,
it's devastating.
it is. It is. This is
Devastating.
good.
I think we're on
IRAs, right?
IRA. So IRAs go back to the 401k type thing too, where you've got the SEP IRA, the solo K, the simples. Just try to think of everywhere that you've placed money. And like Cheryl was saying, my husband, we missed one as well. He worked for Washington Mutual, which is now Chase, and he
Yep.
moved on. That was many jobs ago, and it was funny because now we can't find it. He knows it's there. I remember a few years ago, I got a letter in the mail saying, Mr. Mabry's, IRA pension, and I put it somewhere really safe, but we never really addressed.
Washington Mutual. Boy, you just really dug back. As
I
I had a
know.
Washington Mutual account. That's why when you said that, I went, oh my gosh, there's a name.
WAMU.
That's kind of
Yeah,
like EF Hutton around here. So it's
there
like you
you
hear that and
go.
you're like, what? So
So,
yeah.
but Cheryl, I did just grab my husband and mine Social Security benefit statement, and it is
Mhm.
super easy to get online. It's like
Yeah.
socialsecurity.gov, and you can go on there and get it immediately.
Yeah,
So
the
that's really great.
ssa.gov. It's easy, and you could just
Yep.
have to, and they're only going to, you're only going to have to put in the minimal information the government requires, like your last
Right.
four digits of your social security. You're not going to have to completely divulge, your firstborn and, your, hair that you're going to mail into an envelope, and don't go to the office. Just go online and do it. I mean,
Yeah, it's
seriously.
really, really easy.
Yep.
Really easy. So I have disability policies here, and that's a funny one too, because people would think, wait a minute, why am I getting a life insurance payout or any money out of a disability policy? But in fact, you are. A lot of the disability carriers, Principal Standard, a lot of the domestic carriers have a component in their disability policy that if you are on claim and you've already satisfied your elimination period and pass away, there is a small life insurance payout.
Yeah.
So make sure you check that if you have a disability policy.
I wanted to give you a little shout out too from Facebook Live, because you have people who are coming in here too and saying things like, so Cameo Roberson, she's in the northern area of your hood,
Yes.
but she said, this is a great list. How many of us have forgotten about this? And then Janet Ing, she said, you're so right about dealing with your ex-husband, Cheryl. I have my own story regarding my own policy. See, this is real stuff. And I'm glad that we're sharing stories. And anybody who's watching on Zoom, I hope you'll feel like you can use the chat feature, because I'm watching that for Dina as she's presenting. And the disability policies, when you originally showed me the screen, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Right?
I thought I was pretty good and covered, and lo and behold, I
hear
forgot.
you. And then the trusts and the wills, that's just the safety net that everybody needs to have. And I hear time and time again, it's too expensive, and it's not too expensive. When you start thinking about probate and you start thinking about the legal fees associated with not having things designated properly and assigned to the right people, that's the last thing you want to do, is bring attorneys in to start fighting. So trust and wills, and I have some good resources, and so does Cheryl for some. I like Legacy Lock, but there's a lot of different other ones out there.
Call Dina.
Call us, reach out to us. We're here for you. I'm just looking down at my notes real quick, make sure I don't forget to say anything. Do you have anything else to?
No, I think these were good. And as you see this list, if you think that there's others that we should have touched on, please leave a comment on Facebook or here on Zoom so we can. And by the way, if you do use the chat feature on here, do know that if you go down on your chat screen, there's 3 little dots that say more. You can actually save the chat from this. And when we get done and close out, it'll actually save any notes that were in the chat. So I don't know if you guys knew that, but there you go. You can do that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So anytime you're in a really vibrant chat situation, like one of our meetups or something like that, just go and hit save chat. It'll actually download all. So when people share all of their contact information, you can go back and see that there. The replay of this will stay live on Facebook. And then we're actually going to upload this to our YouTube channel too, so we can go back and have some content there. But yeah, tell people how they can reach you.
Here's my contact information. I'm in California, but I work everywhere and nowhere, because I haven't left my house in a long time, but that's okay. But we lifted our stay-at-home order in California, so we can go out to eat soon. So there I am, Dina Mabry, and I have a fabulous case manager, Stephanie Abbott, who's happy to answer any questions. And if you need documents or beneficiary change forms on the life, long-term care, or disability, and visit my new website's going to be up next week. It's been, you know Cheryl, but yes, Cheryl puts out websites in an evening, so I don't know.
Oh, stop. Now, the first time I did the I hired someone to do the Females in Finance, the first website. And then after like 4 months, Daryl goes, I don't think we're getting a website. So then we hired a second person. And after 3 or 4 months, he says, I don't think so we spent almost $8,000 the first go around trying to get websites built. And then finally I just took a week off and said, don't anybody call me. I'm just going to build my own website. And I did. So
well, mine's going to be up next week, and there's going to be a calendar scheduler on there. It's going to be very high tech and great. So you can go on there and book some time with myself or with Stephanie, and we're happy to help. Use this as a resource. And if I really want you to look at your life insurance policies too. And if you want me to look at them, I'm happy to tell you how long they're good for and what you actually have. So I'm happy to do that for anybody that needs me to look at them.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. And many of you know risk management is something I feel very near and dear and passionate about. I love the financial planning world for what you're doing out there and looking at how, where money's going and what the trajectory of money is. And all of that is great, and assets under management. However, I can tell you, after having friends affected by 9/11, having friends affected by, in fact, I shared a story recently with Steve Morelli from Insurance News that I used to work at Mass Mutual when the Pettit Martin murder happened up in San Francisco. They were our clients. And so we knew that those families would be in our office within days or hours, maybe even phone calls about what happens. And so when that Pettit and Martin happened, there was 8 people who were killed. It really just solidified why I believe in insurance. It's near and dear to me. And at the end of it, I tell everybody, whether it's the house burns down, the car gets wrecked, or someone passes away, they come back to risk managers and they say, am I going to be okay? And it's our job to have an answer for this. And Dina is there to help you shore up part of what that need is, and she can kind of walk you through and look at that. So again, I know that we all have different veins of expertise in financial services, and I respect all of them. I just tell everybody, I wish Aaron Klein were watching right now, because when I went to Riskalyze and it's all the fee only planners, I wear my shirt that says I love insurance. And I told him and many others, I was like, when your financial planning world can be as absolute as mine, which is 100% claim, everybody passes away, then maybe, I'll stop wearing the shirt, but I'd still wear the shirt because I believe in it so much. So Dina, this has been great.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're a wealth of
And
knowledge, and I hope people will reach
thank
out
you.
to you and connect.
Hope so.
You're very responsive. You're very quick, and like I said, I'm just really blessed you're my friend. I'm
Thank
glad
you,
you're here.
Cheryl. Same goes to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, friends. With that, we'll close out and look forward to seeing you all on the next webinar. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye now.